Welcome back to the channel, you guys. Finally, the C32 is back and it's breathing, it's alive. Well, I figured out exactly what really was wrong with this thing. It's partially fixed, but I can explain later in this video. But I'm so excited because it's been almost 3 months of this thing sitting in the garage collecting dust. Almost looked like a barn find. I really miss driving it. This whole time, you know, I've been trying to figure out what exactly was really going on with the car. And shout out to C32. You guys check him out on Instagram. He's very knowledgeable about these cars. The last time I spoke with him, he basically told me what really was going on. Well, technically he told me how the car is feeling, and that got me thinking of what I could do next to try and solve the issue. And that led me to the solution. And I'm pretty much gonna explain everything that I did in order to get it up and running on the streets. If you guys missed the last video, I think it's the previous video, definitely go check out that video if you guys are new to the channel. I would highly recommend seeing that update because this video makes so much sense. It started off with me trying to figure out the tensioner. Obviously, you guys saw from the previous video what was really going on with the supercharger. Honestly, I'm not really sure if the other supercharger is done. It could be not, because I know why the other supercharger was acting that way. So I actually ended up getting a new supercharger. Obviously, this is not brand new. This is from a used car. I'm not sure if it was a 32, but this supercharger came off of a car that was only 120k miles on it. So that's really good miles. And I was super excited when I got the supercharger because it actually came with a plaque. So this supercharger I got off of eBay came with intercooler underneath the supercharger. It came with a throttle body. It pretty much came with everything except the, you know, the surge tanks. And what else did it not come with? Yeah, that's pretty. Oh yeah, it didn't come with the stock pulley, but I already had a pulley for this. So all I had to do was just plug and play. And I'm so sorry I didn't document all the stuff for you guys. I really didn't feel like documenting all of this because it was just really frustrating, honestly. So I checked out the supercharger, got everything buttoned up, ready to start the car, and I was nervous as heck because I wasn't sure really what was gonna happen, if it was gonna be a fix or not. Started off the car, about like 5 seconds of running the car, the supercharger started making the same noise. Guys, I tell you what, when I heard that, oh my gosh, my heart dropped. Bought a whole new supercharger, which, you know, it's pretty costly. I'm like, what now? Like, why? Keep in mind, all this thing started with the tensioner, trying to get it replaced. So I turned on the car again and I looked at the tensioner, and the tensioner was just jumping like crazy, which essentially what I've learned is once the tensioner is doing that, it's causing off timing with the supercharger, and the supercharger kind of binds with each other and it isn't able to push air into the system. So hence, that's why the supercharger was doing that. So obviously, my next step is to actually look for a brand new tensioner. So I looked all over online. I did a lot of research, and finally, I came across a tensioner, a super brand new tensioner off of a wrecked C32. The owner that was selling, well, he wasn't selling the car, but he was selling parts off of the car. Now that car pretty much had a brand new tensioner. I don't know where they got that tensioner from, but it had a brand new tensioner and it had the knee swing pulley saver kit on it, which is pretty cool. And I think I might go back and grab that from him eventually. He provided the tensioner, so brand new tensioner. Got back home, installed the tensioner on there, turned it back on, same issue. I was just really puzzled. I was kind of confused why a brand new tensioner would do that. And keep in mind, I am new to this platform and I don't really know much how these operate versus NA engines. From what I've learned, these engines with the supercharger are more sensitive if something isn't fully right. I'll get to it soon. You guys probably have already figured it out. But the tensioner just kept shaking and, you know, I was like, okay, what do I do next? Checked all the pulleys. Obviously, all these pulleys are brand new. The idler right here, the smooth idler is brand new. Obviously, this is a fixed pulley. Tensioner pulley is brand new. The pulley came with a tensioner. Water pump is still good. Crank pulley is still good. Alternator is still good. Everything on here is still good. I couldn't figure it out. So at this point, I was like, you know what? I don't know what to do. Let me reach out to my guys. So I reached out to C32. I took a video exactly what was going on, and he said, it's running rough. And I was like, why did I not think about that? All that I was fixated was supercharger and a shaky tensioner, and I didn't think a rough idle would cause a shaky tensioner like that. And I didn't think a rough idle would cause a supercharger to go out of timing. So it makes a lot of sense that he told me that. So the next thing I decided to do was replace ignition coils and wires. Now, when I first got this car, I only replaced the spark plugs and didn't replace the ignition coils. Yes, I know, guys, you're supposed to replace everything. Now, you guys are probably thinking, what the heck are those long looking ignition wires looking like aftermarket? But I did some research and found out, you know, these are actually pretty good ignition coils and wires. They came as a set. Apparently, you know, they're red. Wires are a little bit more high performance, but I think it's just marketing. But I ended up just getting those because it was a pretty good deal and I just stuck with them. So bought coils and wires, installed them, and I was crossing my finger. Okay, this might fix the rough idle, because obviously with rough idle, it's either related to spark plugs, ignition coils or wires, or fuel system that would cause a rough idle. I didn't really think too much about catalytic converters, but I figured, you know what, let me just go ahead and do this real quick and see what happens. So installed everything and turned on the car. Same dang freaking issue. The tensioner keeps wobbling. The car just keeps shaking. And obviously the supercharger starts making the noise again. So the next thing I figured was fuel injectors. Let's do that because that's related to rough idle. I went ahead and purchased OEM fuel injectors here. You guys can see these are actually blue. I guess they're not black. These are the updated ones, but these are OEM fuel injectors. Went ahead and installed them, and guess what? Turned on the car. It was almost happy. It could actually keep an idle. The tensioner was still shaking, but not as drastically. Supercharger was running, tensioner was still shaking. You could kind of hear the supercharger still kind of binding a little bit because it couldn't push air into the system. Hint, hint. But it was still acting weird. So I did some research. It could be cats, because when this issue actually started, my first initial thought was, I'm pretty sure I know what it is, because I kind of heard some clonking in the exhaust before all this started happening. And so what I ended up doing was doing some research, finding out if cats actually clog catalytic converters actually cause a rough idle. Found out they can, and it can cause some other issues as well. So I went ahead, decided, okay, let me go ahead and just unplug the O2 sensors. They screw in after the primary cat. There's one before the primary cat, and after the primary cat there's another one. So I went ahead and unscrewed that, turned the car on. Guys, I kid you not, I was like a kid in a candy store. The car was acting perfectly. Like, it had the perfect idle. The tensioner wasn't moving at all. Everything was just running so smooth. The ignition coils and the wires needed replaced. Mostly the fuel injectors, when I replaced them, it could idle, but it wasn't as smooth. And once I unplugged those O2 sensors, that's when everything changed. I would assume the injectors were from factory, and ignition coils and wires also factory, and catalytic converters factory. You know, everything just needed maintenance. After adding I'm not sure how many pounds of boost, but about 50 horsepower from just upgrading the pulley, that can really do a lot with these types of engines with a supercharger. If it's not really maintained and you start pushing power, you're gonna run into, you know, issues. And I want to say, from what I've done since like 3 months ago, I have pretty much really tuned up the car. So pretty much new injectors, new ignition coils and wires. Spark plugs are also new when I got the car. All pulleys have been changed, brand new. During that time, I went ahead and replaced the radiator as well because it was leaking down here. I also blood flushed the coolant. I also changed the transmission fluid. That is pretty much all I did. I also went ahead and tightened up these hoses here with clamps, because with these hoses, they might leak a little bit, give you kind of some sort of vacuum leak. So I tightened those up. Obviously, I have this filter on here because just so I could drive the car out here. I didn't think the main issue were the cats. So right now, this car sounds like a tractor. I'll turn it on real quick for you guys to listen to how it sounds like. All I have is the O2 sensors unplugged. Obviously, you can't see it because I zip tied it, but you can tell, you know, where the O2s are. Here we go. at that. Sounds really healthy, honestly. The only thing is, it sounds really terrible. I have long tube headers coming for this car. I'm just waiting for my long tube headers to come in from Moscow Supercharge. Guys, it's running. It's running. Again, shout out to C32 for helping me with some leads with this and figuring out exactly what really I could do on this car. Also, if you've noticed, I went ahead and while I took the supercharger out, I went ahead and deleted the secondary air injection pump. It created so much room for activity, so I'm gonna put some sort of a split cooling right here. I should get better temps with this supercharger, and also this fixed pulley. I'm definitely gonna go back to a clutch pulley because during this whole process, I noticed something. It's got me paranoid now. That's why I'm going back to a clutched pulley. So essentially what I was thinking in my head was, if you have a fixed pulley on here, you know, the supercharger is always going to be running. If, for example, you have cats on this car and they go clogged, obviously the car can't breathe anymore and you have the tensioner, you know, shaking like crazy. I feel like that could be dangerous because let's just say you're on the highway and maybe, you know, it starts running really rough. I mean, obviously the car could just shut down and you could just pull to the side, turn it back on, and you could tell, okay, it's not running right. But then again, I'm just so paranoid now because this ever happened, you know, tensioner not really working and supercharger starts binding with each other. I've heard some people say, you know, the twin screws can break off and go into the combustion chamber and really lock up the internals. So I don't know if that's actually a thing, but fixed pulley, I mean, the clutch pulley is, you know, Mercedes safety, but for a fixed pulley, supercharger is constantly running, and if anything were to happen, it's still running. So I'm not sure. Maybe you guys can comment down below, let me know what you think if something like were to happen like this, just cruising on the highway. Who knows, like, you know, the supercharger, will it keep spinning, or will the car actually shut off and, you know, pull to the side to try and assess really what's going on. But yeah, that's where my head was. Maybe I'm just overthinking it, but you guys let me know what you think about that. Well, I'm super happy, guys, so stay tuned for future videos. We'll be pumping out more videos on this car now that I figured out and sorted out everything that's wrong with it. So we'll go from there. I think the next thing will probably be the long tube headers, waiting for it. We'll get that installed, probably do a video on it, and I'll keep you guys posted and go from there. I know you guys have noticed a few things on here. I will make an updated video. You guys are seeing the front lip and the painted calipers. Check it out. I'm sure you guys love that, but oh, it looks so good. Tiffany blue, can't go wrong with that. But this front splitter definitely made the car super aggressive. Let me go ahead and close the hood real quick so you guys can get the whole effect on it. Woo! That looks so good. I also updated the fog lights to LED white lights and parking lights to LED white lights, so they look really good whenever I'm driving the car in the daytime. Yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I am so glad I was able to get this video out for you guys to know exactly what the fix was. And I'm just so happy, guys. If you guys are new to the channel and want to see more of this car, go ahead and smash the like button, subscribe, it's free. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.